Tonight, under fire. The opposition takes aim at the Premier over a high-powered gun demonstration as Mark McGowan cops a popularity hit. Tunnel turmoil, a fight between two men spills onto the Graham Farmer Freeway. Tears and cheers as an unlikely indie flick takes out top honours at an emotional Academy Awards. Ed Sheeran smashes his own Optus crowd record, but not all of his fans were happy with how the night ended. And a Sam Kerr stunner nets Chelsea a 1-0 win over Manchester United.
This is 10 News First Perth with Natalie Forrest.
Good evening, thanks for your company. The state government is under fire over a dangerous media stunt that cost taxpayers thousands of dollars. The opposition says it's another example of political arrogance as the Premier's approval rating slides to its lowest level since the start of the pandemic.
This high-powered show at a press conference in March last year to promote new gun laws has backfired on the government. The National Shooting Council claiming Freedom of Information documents show WA police were warned repeatedly over the risky live-fire demonstration.
The commander of the Police Tactical Response Group didn't want to do the event because it was unsafe. You then had the Army give advice. They said don't do it. The Air Force said, don't do it, we don't want to do it, it's not safe.
The gun lobby says the documents also reveal the .50 calibre sniper rifle had to be specially purchased ahead of the so-called media stunt, which forced the closure of Pearce Air Base for 2 days.
It shows incredible arrogance. It also shows a complete and total disregard for the personal safety of everybody.
In a statement, WA Police says the rifle cost $8,500, but is now used by officers for test firing and forensic comparisons. It says any potential issues raised were addressed with mitigation strategies by experts.
The fact that they're willing to spend thousands of taxpayer dollars on this media stunt at the risk of public safety illustrates they have lost touch with the needs of Western Australians.
A sentiment echoed in the latest polls showing a drop in the Premier's popularity, now at 63% satisfaction, down from 70% in October last year.
It's all about making sure we continue to deliver to the community, not taking any day for granted.
But Mark McGowan may have another fight on his hands as the Federal Treasurer Jim Chalmers announced a review of the state's GST breakup.
It was a federal coalition government that secured a fair deal for the GST. The Premier must stand up for Western Australia.
Jessica Brown for 10 News First.
A man has faced court over a dramatic foot chase through the Graham Farmer Freeway tunnel overnight. Traffic was brought to a standstill as police confronted the 30-year-old who'd only just been released from prison.
Terror in the Graham Farmer tunnel.
Don't put your window up, darling. I'll hurt her.
He's running away. He's got a baseball bat.
It's got a baseball bat.
A 30-year-old man accused of trying to evade police before punching and kicking officers as they pinned him to the ground. Late-night traffic swerving to avoid the scuffle.
He's banging all these cars. Oh!
Sorry. No, open the window. I'm putting window up, leave it.
Where?
Holy sh**.
Police say members of the public called 000 after they saw two men fighting in the tunnel around 10:30. Their car blocking traffic as their spat spilled onto the busy freeway. Yaron Leslie charged with assaulting two police officers in the late-night incident. Leslie appeared at the Perth Magistrates Court this morning over the charges. Bail wasn't considered and he was remanded in custody. In court, it was revealed he was recently released from prison and is on parole. Leslie was sentenced to 14 months jail time last year for setting off a homemade bomb in Leederville. The bomb squad called in to remove a second homemade device in the city. He'll be back before court later this month. Brendan Crew for 10 News First.
A young man has gone on trial accused of manslaughter after colliding with an elderly cyclist and causing his death. Tyson Michael Denny was allegedly riding his dirt bike at nearly 100 kilometres per hour on a cycle path in the lead-up to the crash.
A grandfather left to die on a path. Tyson Michael Denny hit John Peters with his off-road motorbike in June 2021, then allegedly rode away. The 84-year-old died in hospital 11 days later. On day one of his Supreme Court trial, Mr Denny admitted causing Mr Peters' death while driving dangerously, but denies it was manslaughter. The court was told the 24-year-old was riding on the cycle path and keeping up to speed with a truck on Roe Highway doing 93 kilometres per hour. The truck driver saw him doing wheelies before he appeared to get the wobbles. He saw the two collide just after a bend on the cycle path near Kenwick Link. Prosecutors allege he didn't help in the aftermath. Instead, the 24-year-old walked around the critically injured man and fled, telling the court his nose and hand injuries were not so serious he couldn't have stayed at the scene. The jury was told they'll be showing video from a helmet camera on a passing cyclist. Prosecutors will argue it shows Mr Denny telling a witness he's leaving to get help, despite being told an ambulance was already on the way. The defence argued he didn't stay because he needed hospital treatment and asked the court to consider whether Mr Denny's driving was dangerous enough to be found guilty of manslaughter. It will be for the jury to decide over the next 10 days. Stephen Thomas for 10 News First.
Dozens of families have had their daycare plans thrown into chaos after their local centre shut with less than a day's notice. A legal stoush is now brewing between the landlord and the operator, booted out over claims of unpaid rent.
The gates locked, playgrounds empty as claims of unpaid rent see Perth daycare shut.
The short notice is pretty big, especially for families who now have to figure it out, and daycare's pretty tough as it is.
Genius Childcare notifying parents just yesterday its Forestfield and Swanview centres would not be operating until further notice.
Finalised it on Wednesday, paid 2 weeks on Thursday, picked her up on Friday and no one said anything, and then yesterday got a message to say closed down.
Forcing some parents to take time off work to care for their kids.
It's hard because, I work, a lot of other mums work, a lot of other parents work. It's hard to actually find a babysitter. It's just ridiculous, especially when we found out that there was a notice up at the centre saying there was unpaid rent. So obviously this has been going on more than just overnight, so they could have given us more notice.
Genius Childcare told 10 News First it denies the dispute is over unpaid rent and had tried to work with the landlord to keep the centre open, but the landlord instead chose to terminate the leases without further notice. Genius is now planning legal action over the dispute.
The new operators say they secured the lease over the weekend, and by this morning a new sign had already been put up. They say all children will be able to re-enrol, but it could take at least 2 weeks for the centres to be operational again.
The centre's landlord has been contacted for comment. Cindy Lavrenchik for 10 News First.
Indie hit Everything Everywhere All at Once has made Oscars history while also cleaning up with 7 awards. It's as our homegrown talent failed to score, Aussie-made Elvis coming away empty-handed despite a stack of nominations.
Excitement bubbled over on the champagne-coloured carpet, the brand new look, heralding some other history-making moments in the 95th...